We start at noon with breaking news. A grand jury has indicted a man on murder charges in the deaths of 3 women in the metro area. Jesse Calhoun is already in custody and will be brought to Multnomah County to face these new charges. Thank you for joining us. I'm China Green. This case has garnered national attention, and the clock was ticking for an indictment because Calhoun was scheduled to get out of prison next month on unrelated charges. Our Tim Gordon is in the newsroom. Tim, what else have we learned here?
Well, China, we reported that the grand jury was expected to hear testimony this week, and that turned out to be the case. Last summer, the Associated Press, the Oregonian, and Willamette Week all cited law enforcement sources who identified Jesse Calhoun as a person of interest in the deaths of several women whose bodies were found in wooded or secluded areas around Portland between February and May of 2023. Today, the grand jury indicted Calhoun for the deaths of 3 of those women: Charity Perry, Bridget Webster, and Joanna Speaks. Perry's body was found in a culvert near Ainsworth State Park in the Gorge. Webster was found along a country road in Polk County. Detectives believe Speaks was killed in Portland, although her body was found in an abandoned barn in Ridgefield, Washington. Well, last June, a SWAT team tried to arrest Calhoun in Milwaukee. He jumped into the Willamette River before police arrested him on a parole violation. Now, Calhoun sent KGW a series of messages through an inmate communication system. He said he'd been wrongly accused and wrote, quote, "I'm no killer." Calhoun faces 3 charges of murder in the 2nd degree and 3 charges of abuse of a corpse. 2 other women, Kristen Smith and Ashley Real, also died suspiciously last year. At this point, Calhoun has not been charged in their deaths. Of course, we're going to stay on top of the story and give you updates just as soon as we learn more. China.
Our Tim Gordon reporting for us. Thank you, Tim. New at noon, a car crashed near the front entrance of Salty's Seafood Restaurant in Northeast Portland this morning. Video at the scene shows the car damaged part of the carport that extends over the passenger loading area. Staff cleaning up debris told us that they hope to still open the restaurant at its usual time, which is right around noon. Details of the crash are limited right now, but restaurant staff say the driver left the scene. Be sure to stay with us for the latest updates. And before we get to more of those headlines, let's check in with meteorologist Chris McGinnis for our weather forecast heading into a weekend. Beautiful behind you.
Isn't it though? Check this out, China. This is the live look from Oregon's Veterans Home in the Dalles, where we can see Mount Hood off in the distance and a clear sky at the east end of the gorge. And you might also be seeing all those balloons and kites flying around the Oregon's Veterans Home in the Dalles, where they are celebrating National Skilled Nursing Care Week. So big shout out to the staff there, keeping our veterans happy. As we roll into the east end of the gorge, you can see the breeze also quite gusty this afternoon. It is not as gusty as it was yesterday, but enough of a breeze for sure to keep those kites flying in the breeze out there this afternoon. Okay, to the west side here, we are still dealing with the broken cloud cover. Honestly, I thought this would break up a little more than it has this afternoon. We're not quite there yet, but along the Oregon coast, blue sky this afternoon, right? Here's a look at the visible satellite imagery. And again, cloud cover quite thick still across southwest Washington and northwest Oregon. That will continue to thin through the day. We've got more in your forecast coming up in just a few minutes. China?
Chris, thank you. We are going to go back to the story on Jesse Calhoun, who is being indicted in the charges of 3 women. There's a press conference right now. Let's take a listen.
Bring a tremendous amount of empathy to their work, combined with a sharp legal acumen. I'm confident in their ability to successfully prosecute these cases. As you were told, the grand jury returned indictments on 3 counts of murder in the 2nd degree and 3 counts of abuse of corpse in the 2nd degree. As with the majority of homicides, these cases are complex, and it has required a significant investigation involving many different law enforcement agencies. I'm grateful to those agencies for their collaboration and their help in getting us to the point where we were confident in presenting these cases to the grand jury. There's still more work to be done. Investigations are ongoing. And with that, I'm going to let the sheriff and then the chief speak to that. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, D.A. Schmidt. I'm Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell. Today's indictment of Jesse Calhoun marks a significant step toward justice for 3 women, Charity Lynn Perry, Bridget Webster, and Joanna Speaks, their families, and our community. We recognize that until today, there have been many questions and that their deaths have caused fear and anxiety across our area and for the families who have been waiting for answers. We want our community to know that all of us in public safety have been working tirelessly to achieve this result, and that public safety, your safety, was and continues to be our highest priority. We do greatly appreciate the public's patience to reach this point today. And to get to this point, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office committed an extraordinary amount of resources. We assigned Sheriff's Office detectives to focus on these investigations. These detectives worked alongside the District Attorney's Office, the Portland Police Bureau, and many other law enforcement agencies to ensure the cases are thorough and complete. Understand that this work does not stop here. We remain committed to see these cases through to the end and holding accountable Jesse Calhoun to the fullest extent possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. Good afternoon. I want to echo some of the same comments we've already heard, specifically to the families and for your loss. It's a tremendous responsibility that we have in the area of public safety to constantly be advocating for the sanctity of life in all that we do. And today is a gratifying day to acknowledge these indictments, but it's also a very somber day. A day to remember the lives lost and the sacrifice that these families are experiencing in that loss. And although we cannot bring them back, we will do our very best to find justice and resolution in this process on your behalf. I do want to emphasize and recognize, as already mentioned, the extensive collaboration that went into this investigation. The Portland Police Bureau's partnership with agencies behind me, as well as several in the Tri-County area, is ongoing, but has been extensive. And we've been engaged from the very beginning, taking strong investigative steps, marshaling all the resources that we have to bear to come to successful conclusion, or at least a successful point in time as we are right now, certainly not a conclusion. And we're 100% committed to continuing this work around this case and any other information that might become available. So just know that we're not done, and we are very much aware of the impact this has had on our community as a whole. And our desire here today is to message to those, as the sheriff said so well, that we are engaged, we take this responsibility seriously, and we intend to continue our commitment to provide the highest level of safety to the community. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chief, thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, DA Schmidt. We do have some time for some Q&A. Again, the investigations are ongoing. The prosecution is still to come. We will not share information that jeopardizes any of them. That would be incredibly harmful. With that, please state your name and who you'd like to ask a question to. Connor, we'll start with you.
Connor McCarthy with Fox 12. I know there are two other women who were kind of lumped in throughout the year. They were named on the indictment. Are those cases still under investigation at this time? To anyone that can answer that question.
Yes, there are continuing to be investigations ongoing. So what the grand jury has returned is the evidence that we presented on those cases, and other cases continue to be investigated.
So I think there were three other women, Kristen Smith, Ashley Rial, and an unidentified woman. Are all three of them still being investigated in connection with Jesse Calhoun?
I'll let my senior deputy talk to that about that.
Hi, good morning. We are still very much investigating the deaths of Kristen Smith and Ashley Rial with our partners here, as well as the Clackamas County DA's office and other investigators. The sixth woman we have determined was not a homicidal death, and so the sixth woman is not at this point being investigated further.
And then the last time there was an update on this case, Joanna Speaks was not being linked with Calhoun. I know that you can't reveal too many details of this investigation, but can you share anything about why she was added to the people who were linked with this person?
Evidence presented to the grand jury and evidence obtained by the investigators led us to that link and resulted in the indictment. So at this point, we do feel confident moving forward with charges involving Ms. Speaks and Mr. Calhoun and his involvement in her death.
Can you speak to at all what connected the woman to Mr. Calhoun, even generally without compromising the case?
Unfortunately, given the nature of the ongoing investigation, I can't answer that question at this time.
And do you anticipate any federal charges? I know one of the women, I think it was Ms. Speaks, body was found in Washington State. Do you expect any federal kidnapping charges?
I'm also not able to speak to that at this time.
Ariel Salk with Coin 6. Did the jury consider any charges beyond murder and abuse of a corpse? And could there be more charges in the future?
The grand jury indicted on all of the charges that they considered at the time. Additional charges could move forward if additional evidence were presented to them.
Either for you or D.A. Schmidt, could you please address the timing of this indictment in light of the fact that it comes literally days before an election, also weeks before Calhoun was due to be released?
Thank you. The timing of the grand jury convening was set last year. The arrest of Mr. Calhoun was not directly related to these charges, and so we knew, because he had been arrested, we knew that his release date would be coming in early June. We knew that we would need to move forward with an indictment by that time. The date of the specific indictment was based on the date that we concluded testimony. The grand jury voted yesterday. We met with the families and informed them of the decision and then immediately released that here. From our perspective, the election had nothing to do with why we chose to do it at the time we did or the speed at which the investigation went forward. The collection and development of evidence is what controlled that completely. I think all of our investigative partners would agree and would confirm that we had discussed a mid-May grand jury proceeding well before the election politics were raised as it related to this case.
Was there any concern that he would potentially be released prior to an indictment?
I'm not sure.
Was there any concern that he might be released from the Department of Corrections prior to this indictment?
We knew what his release date was, and so we knew the date that we had to move forward. Of course, we had to have a certain amount of evidence in order to be able to present that to the grand jury to ensure that we were able to charge him prior to that date. That the investigation into all of these cases is still very much ongoing.
Just to be clear, once his sentence with DOC is finished, where does he go?
Pardon?
Where does he go once his DOC sentence is?
We anticipate he'll be transported back to Multnomah County.
So he's going to finish out the rest of his time in state DOC and then come back to Multnomah County?
That I can't answer.
Do you expect to prosecute these cases together as one?
The grand jury returned a single indictment, so at this point, Mr. Calhoun will be charged on one charging document.
A couple more questions if you have them.
Can you speak to Calhoun's relationship with these women, how he knew them, any link and how they knew each other?
Due to the nature of the ongoing investigation, unfortunately, I can't provide that information at this time.
Looking at the charge of murder in the second degree, can you provide any explanation as far as what factors may have come into play in determining murder in the second degree versus murder in the first degree for those who don't have a general understanding of how the statute's written?
Sure, there are very specific requirements in order to get to an indictment of murder in the first degree, factual things that we have to be able to prove. The evidence that was presented to the grand jury at this point supports a murder in the second degree charge. Were we able to indict on murder in the first degree, we would have sought that. At this point, the investigations are ongoing. If something changes, that's a possibility, but we have to go with what the law says, and the grand jury has to vote on what the actual elements of the charge are.
When is the arraignment set?
We don't have a date yet.
Are there any other people being investigated as a person of interest in this case?
That I can't answer at this time.
Can you say when you first got the inkling that he may have been responsible for one of the homicides or more?
That I also can't answer at this time.
Thank you. That's Melissa Marrero, Senior Deputy DA. That's Melissa Marrero. Lastly,
So as we
again,
were hearing there, Jesse Calhoun has been charged in the death of 3 women who were found dead under suspicious circumstances last year. Again, he's being charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree abuse of a corpse. The clock here was ticking for an indictment because Calhoun was scheduled to get out of prison next month on unrelated charges. We heard during this press conference Chief Bob Day, among others, giving his condolences to the family of the victims, sounding even emotional at times. We will continue to follow the developments of this case on air and online at KGW.com.